All right, you guys, we'll go ahead and get started. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Mental Wellness webinar hosted by the City of Milton and the LRJ Foundation. I am Emily Salerno. I'm our Community Outreach Manager here with the City of Milton. And I wanted to kick it off by just a few quick admin reminders. All attendees are muted and videos are turned off by default. Towards the end of the meeting, as well as some other potential opportunities throughout the meeting, there will be some chances to ask any questions that you may have, but feel free to use the chat feature at the bottom. If you could, please stay muted through the full presentation just to minimize a few distractions. And so with that, I will kick it off to Mayor Peyton Jamison.
Thank you, Emily. As Emily said, I'm Peyton Jamison, and I'm the proud mayor of Milton. It is my honor once again and privilege to welcome you to our 2024 Milton Mental Wellness webinar. Every year, our city hosts this webinar with the LRJ Foundation. LRJ is a fantastic local nonprofit dedicated to offering support, spreading awareness, and reducing stigmas to encourage those struggling with mental health challenges to open up and get help they need. They're active in local schools and the greater community, making a positive impact. And we're grateful that they work with us in Milton year after year on this webinar and other outreach efforts. I'd especially like to thank LRJ's Executive Director, Teresa Rusby, who you will hear from shortly. Teresa has been a smart, thoughtful, caring, and productive partner for the City of Milton for a long time. She and her foundation are difference makers in our world. That's also what makes this webinar all about. It's making a difference. The focus is on emotional intelligence, why it's important, how you can enhance your own, how you can understand others' emotions, and how all that knowledge can help people who need that support. Everyone deals with emotions, and we're all better off when we can understand and process them better. It's one of many elements that we can work with to improve on our own and others' mental health. So whether you're watching this live or later online, we expect you'll get a lot out of this engaging expert conversation. You'll be able to find out at other resources at miltonga.gov/mental wellness. Thank you and enjoy this webinar. And I want to say thank you again to Teresa and the team. I'm looking forward to this every single year, and you do wonderful things for our community. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Mayor Jamison, for a fantastic introduction. I am so excited for this webinar. The theme for this year is emotional intelligence, and it's all around mindset. And sharing with you today, as you can see, our mindset truly matters, and you're going to hear what that means. So I am the executive director and co-founder of the LRJ Foundation. My goal with this organization and my great team is to pull together mental health professionals and experts in this field that have a passion for mental health and wellness to support their own health and the well-being of others. And I think we've done a great job with this so far. And tonight we have a great lineup to share a little bit more what this means and to continue the conversation for days down the road. So a little bit about LRJ Foundation. We started in 2011. We've been going on for 13 years, active in schools across the region, schools in Georgia, Pennsylvania, and Virginia, bringing and implementing mental health education programs to students of all different ages, parents and teachers. So with that, we go by the slogan of better than yesterday. We want the opportunity to do something today that was better than yesterday in our health and well-being. And a little bit of this word, we kind of broke it down this year to have a definition of what better than yesterday means. And basically, it's an action word. It's to build a strong mindset for empowerment, perseverance, inner strength, and facing challenges with courage and resilience. And we're going to hear a lot more about that today. So a little bit more on moving into this webinar. I was connected a few weeks ago at my Rotary meeting with Dr. Scott Livingston. I heard him speak, and as soon as I heard him speak, I said, I need to have him on my webinar. So I reached out to him, and he was excited to be a part of the mental wellness webinar for 2024. Dr. Scott Livingston is the president of Livingston Consulting Group, an organization dedicated to leadership development and executive coaching. Dr. Livingston completed his doctorate in organizational leadership from Indiana Wesleyan University in 2012. He serves as an adjunct professor for executive coaching and leadership development. His teachings and research emphasize in adults and organizational learning, emotional intelligence, and group coaching, boasting over 3 decades of leadership experience. His primary focus is work around the pivotal role of emotional intelligence, improving leaders' relational skills and performance effectiveness. The approach not only fosters a conducive learning atmosphere, but also improves leaders' awareness, relationship management, and self-decision making for capabilities of better well-being. And that's what emotional intelligence is all about. And he's going to have the opportunity to break that down a little bit further for us. So without further ado, I would like to welcome Dr. Scott Livingston to the Mental Wellness Webinar.
Thank you, Teresa. It's just a pleasure for me to be with you all, and thank you for this opportunity. Let me go ahead and share a screen here, and I want to just talk for a few minutes about this idea around emotional intelligence. And most of the work that I do and the research that we do with our doctoral students is in adults, and but realizing that the human brain and the human emotions, start to develop from a very young age, even in utero. But we're in our research, we're focused primarily in the adult space. We do a lot of research in education, in ministry type leaders, and we really see emotional intelligence as a leader's capacity. So capacity connotes this idea of volume, and if something is volumetric, if there's a capacity for it, we should be able to measure the effectiveness of how a leader shows up with emotional intelligence. And that usually happens in the realm of effectively recognizing. So one of the ideas that you'll hear a lot of in emotional intelligence is that of self-awareness. How do I recognize the impact that emotions are having on me in a context or a situation that I'm faced with, or even a decision that I have to make, right? And then managing those emotions, being able to balance them, being able to understand the impact they're having on me and on others. And in leadership, we talk a lot about the impact of emotions enhancing judgment and decision making. So there's this problem solving, decision making component, in addition to this relationship component that happens with the leader's overall well-being, thinking about managing things like stress and their self-awareness. So this idea of emotional intelligence is a complex idea, but we want to bring it to people so that it's got some usability for them in their daily lives. So we strive to take the science of all of this and boil it down so that it's usable and so that leaders can understand the impact that these emotions are having on them. So as you're just sitting here and we're just warming up a little bit together, just take a minute and think about, what are your stressors? What are things that cause you to have stress in life? And in this simple pictorial, we've just placed several of the things, no matter what research you look at, seem to cause people stress. We don't have moving up there. Moving is another one. Death in the family is a significant stressor. And people stress around relationships. They stress around finances. So what's the impact that these items, that these contexts are having on you as a leader? And as you feel these stresses, how do these emotions, which are basically signals telling you and your body that things are happening to you. That's really what emotions are. They're ways for your body to communicate with you that something is happening. So that if you have a deadline at work or at school, and you're starting to feel anxious because your paper isn't finished or your slides aren't exactly right, then you'll start to feel that anxiety. What's the impact that anxiety has on your ability to be able to perform? So I like to look at this because the human psyche is a complex structure. And at the center of all of this, stress and how we act are our core values and our core beliefs. Now, this is a really complicated big picture thing here that I'm going to really oversimplify and put in a linear graphic just so we cover some of the things that go into how we behave. So there's this idea of core values and beliefs. There's our affective emotion, which is really what we feel, anxious, happy, sad. There's our personality. How much do we extrovert ourselves or introvert ourselves? So common things that measure this are things like the Myers-Briggs, or more popular today on TikTok is the Enneagram. What personality traits? How open are you? How flexible are you? Then there's this idea of trait emotional intelligence. And this is the space that we tend to work mostly with leaders around. Affective emotion and personality will cause leaders to have emotional traits. So if you're anxious about something and you're an extrovert, you might have a low level of impulse control. You might find yourself, because of that anxiety and extroversion, to be a bit impulsive. And so we've found that in the leadership development world, that working at this trait emotional level is a level that leaders really respond to. And then there are your skills and talents, things that you're just naturally have some ability. All of these things start to work together that allow you as a leader to be able to behave. So it really, I wanted to just share quickly the impact that emotions can have. And this comes from the research of Bruce Perry. And I have to give acknowledgement to my good friend and colleague, Joe Lapel, who helped put this graphic Dr. Joe Lapel, who helped put this graphic together as we think about the human brain, which is a very complex organ, and we try to simplify it and boil it down. When we take in inputs, things that come at us from our outside world, our brain processes it in a bottom-up fashion. If we are in that goes from a part of our brain, sits right behind our eyes, called the amygdala, through all this complex web, all the way to our neocortex, which is where we think. And what Bruce's research has shown, that if something happens to us and from our outside world, and the emotion that we're experiencing is fear, this can reduce our IQ, or our ability to be able to think, by 100%, 50 points or more. Reduction in our ability to be able to think. So imagine you're preparing for a test, or you have a big presentation to do at work, and you're getting ready to take the test or go on stage, and all of a sudden you're afraid. And you go in and you take the test, and you didn't do so well, even though you knew the information. You could go out of the test and in a calm setting, talk to your parents or a close friend and know all the answers. And yet when you're in the test, you can't grab it. That's what's happening inside of your emotions. Your body is trying to protect itself there's some fear mechanism happening. And it says, this is not a time to think. This is a time to protect yourself. So in this automatic unconscious brain, we are in a state of protection. If you go out and research this on the web or do any reading on it, you'll hear the fight, flight, freeze, fawn are just reactions that people can have that are part of this primitive unconscious brain. But what we want, where we want leaders to be, is in this space of, even when these things are coming at them that are terribly complex and hard, we want them to be able to stay in a state of calm. This is where you're creative, this is where you're analytical, and this is where you can take maximum advantage of your IQ, so your intelligence. So what that means is that if you're not taking good care of yourself, you're at risk for this primitive brain taking over and potentially not performing the way you want to perform. So I think of the acronym HALTS as just risk factors for people being stuck or put in this a primitive brain mode. If you're hungry, American Diabetes Association says eat 6 small meals a day. If you're already anxious, if you're feeling lonely, if you're feeling tired, if you're stressed or sick, none of these things will maybe cause you to stay in primitive brain, but they give you risk factors for staying there. So is all stress bad when it comes to leadership and performance? Actually, it is not. Some stress, if you just look at this graphic, performance on the y-axis and the stress level across the horizon, in order for us to perform, we need a certain level of stress. We need some desire. We need some motivation to be able to be engaged. But we want to be in a state of being relaxed, and we want to be able to be present. You will hear people in athletics talk about being in an emotional zone. They're zoned in. So this is a place where they actually have that full thinking capacity with all the tension and complexity around the immediate performance of their job. If we don't have enough stress, we're disengaged. If we have too much stress, we become reactive and afraid. Either one of these extremes causes us to trigger into that primitive part of our brain and can affect our overall thinking and our overall performance. So we use a model with leaders called the EQI 2.0. It's a 5-part model, and the reason I wanted to show it to you is we like to think of emotional and social functioning like a tire. If everything is good, your self-awareness is good, how you're expressing yourself, you're managing stress, making good decisions, have good relationships, you're rolling down the road of life just fine. But if you don't have enough air in one of these parts of the tire, if this wheel is a tire, if there's not enough air, every once in a while, you'll be rolling down the road of life and you'll go kerplunk. Not all the time, but sometimes. So having an emotional intelligence where your self-perception, your self-expression, how you manage stress, how you solve problems, and the relationships you have keeps you in a good tension so that you can perform at your highest levels. And this is just a little case study. We're not going to go deep into this. Time won't allow for that. But this is a fictitious client that I worked with, a gifted attorney at a large organization, top of her class, Alabama Law School. She leads a group of lawyers. And on the right, you can see her self-report from an emotional intelligence test that she did. And you can, 100 is about average in this test. 50 is really low and 150 is really high. So you can kind of start to gauge that her, for most of these traits that she has, she's about where most people are, somewhere around 100. The areas where she's a little low, one of the areas is in this area of stress tolerance. So what that means is that when tension and complexity, when stress starts to come on her, she may not have built-in coping mechanisms well enough to deal with them. And this may push her from her thinking brain down to her primitive brain, where she may make decisions that she otherwise wouldn't make if she had her full thinking capacity. So this idea of stress tolerance is we all have an optimal window for tolerance. And I've sort of taken that regulation curve, the gray, the green, and the red, and I've turned it sideways. And we've said that there's an optimal place for people that they tolerate stress and they perform. If they're tired, they're low. If they're overexcited, they're hyper aroused. And this hypo and hyper arousal are bad decision-making points for a leader. You have to know when you're in those and that it's not a good time to make a decision, even though your brain will say it wants you to. So in leadership development, this is what we try and do. We try to increase and give leaders coping mechanisms so that they can actually tolerate more stress when it comes their way. How do you widen that zone? One simple tool that we teach is a simple stop model. That when you're feeling stressed, when you're feeling like you're at one of those tipping points, you stop. You step back and you disengage from the situation. We do what our grandmothers taught us. We take a deep breath. Actually, 4 breaths is better than 1. And we become other person focused. We become empathetic if possible. So we try to think about what the other person that we're working with might be experiencing. And we propose a question. Questions tend to calm people down. Statements tend to put people in these states of hyper and hypo arousal. So this is a simple model that we teach leaders to be able to implement that they can do when they're in meetings, they're in presentations, they're on Zoom calls, whatever they would like. If you'd like to know more about it, we wrote a simple book called The Guided Journey to Practicing Emotional Intelligence. We've laid out, I think, over 30 case studies, and there's some journaling responses. So this is actually more of a workbook for people just to learn more about emotional intelligence. And if anybody would have any questions or need to get a hold of me, I'd be happy to engage. So Teresa, thank you so much for having me be a part of your time here today.
Excellent. Dr. Scott Livingston, thank you so much. That was fantastic. I mean, so many simple, relatable takeaways that we could use in our daily life. Thank you so much. That was amazing. I'm going to absolutely check out that book. I love it. Excellent. Well, we are on to a great start with our Milton Mental Wellness 2024 webinar. And I'm excited next to introduce 2 amazing ladies that I had the opportunity to work with over the last several years. They're fantastic mental health professionals from Johns Creek and Alpharetta Counseling. Owner and mental health professional Erica Gregory is here with us this evening. And also Lila Mills. Had the opportunity to do some school education presentations with Lila. They're going to share some great insight to continue the conversation on emotional intelligence. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you so much, Teresa. All right, let me pull up our presentation here. All righty, so what we're going to be talking about is we're going to be taking what Dr. Livingston started and shifting it more into a conversation about how to use your emotional intelligence to decrease suicide and help in suicide prevention. I'm Erica Gregory. I'm the owner of JCAC, and I'm with Lila Mills, a licensed mental health social worker, and she's part of our Connections team. Okay, so to start with, I'm going to speak a little bit about how do we connect? How do we assess what's going on in somebody else as well as what's going on in ourselves? So, emotional intelligence is that internal awareness and that internal control, right? So, mirror neurons is actually a part of our brain that allows us to read the room, to connect with others. So it's that gut feeling you may get. It's when you walk into a room of people laughing and having a good time and you just kind of feel naturally lighter inside. It's also that feeling you may get when somebody is angry and you're around that and you feel that sense of intensity or self-protection of you need to be cautious and careful. Mirror neurons is a beautiful thing because it's the foundation of empathy. It's our ability to read someone else we're with, have a mirror response of, oh, they're feeling sad, they're feeling happy, they're feeling anxious. And so we can respond in turn and connect and nurture. It's what we use as counselors to lean in and be present with our clients and to help them navigate what they're feeling. It's whenever you're with somebody and you can tell something's kind of off, and that's that instinct you have to say, what's wrong? Is everything okay? And so thinking about that through that lens, when somebody is suicidal or presenting with heavy levels of depression, we're going to be feeling that in our body. We may be feeling the pain and despair that someone may be going in because they need three things to cross that threshold to actually attempt to suicide. The first is pain, where someone may be feeling that depression, heavy weight of emotion. A lot of people don't realize is depression, emotional pain is registered as physical pain in the brain. It's that same part of the brain. So depression can feel like a full body hurt. Or this could be somebody with chronic illness who physically has chronic pain or a chronic struggle. And they may be having that weight of despair and hopelessness. So our mirror neurons, our gut instinct may be feeling that change in their body language, or what we call in the academic world, the change in affect, where it just almost feels like they're carrying like a wet blanket on their shoulders. And usually if someone is starting to think about suicide or considering that as an option, they've been usually carrying this pain for a really long time. So using that to kind of pull on your own empathy and concern of sometime whenever we're noticing, that means it's gotten kind of more extreme. The other thing that someone needs to cross that threshold is loneliness. And this can be three different things. One, it can be physical loneliness. I'm alone. I don't have much support. I live by myself. This can also be perceived loneliness of I'm in the middle of a crowded room, but I feel alone. No one sees or hears the pain I'm going through. I'm alone in feeling this and this exact thing. I'm seeing this more in our teenagers. The rate of suicidality, ideation, and following through is increasing in our teenagers and in really chronic rates. And we're seeing that play out in the suicide by cop in Sugar Hill, Georgia, and even shootings that we're seeing in schools and that are just really scary. And it's very public displays of their pain and a very violent end for them. And then the last thing is a burden. Feeling like a burden to those around me. They really do. They're so in pain and their mindset gets so shifted and so dark that they really feel like I'm a burden to everyone around me and the world would be a better place without me. And that's a really scary and sad thought or sad place to be in. And so being that person that reaches to them can be what helps. And then practice. And what I mean by that is visualizing, romanticizing, thinking it's going to be a glorious end. And that really desensitizes our natural instinct to self-protect and keep yourself safe. So if you were to try to drown yourself at the bottom of a pool, you would start to swim at a certain point in panic. And so our body naturally wants to keep us safe. So they have to practice. So that's why we have to take suicidal ideation or previous attempts really serious. So this means listening to your gut, reading body language, and kind of feeling the people around us so that we know when to check in. We may also hear them say, like, who cares? What does it matter? I don't want to be a burden to you. These are also other warning signs. And so how do you reach to somebody? How do you help? I want to highlight that the number one antidote to suicide is having a caring, loving relationship. One of those is the perception of being alone. And so if someone feels cared about and has that reciprocal relationship by using your own emotional intelligence, connecting with them, and then them what we call feeling felt, that sense of they get me, they see me, they understand me. And then the number one encourager of suicide is silence. Is one, if you are the one thinking and struggling and full of pain, not reaching out, not giving someone the opportunity to help you, or if you're the person who cares about someone and you see the warning signs, not saying anything. So I wanted to highlight the research from the Golden Gate Bridge. So that's a place where some may jump to attempt suicide, and about 25% of the people who jump live. So they were able to do some research on those people, interview those people, and just to give an example of how important connection is. One person reported that if one person smiled at me, I told myself I wouldn't jump. And there's another stat that of the people who survived and were interviewed, 95% of them said the second I let go, I regretted it. I didn't want to die anymore. I prayed that I would live. And so that's just this kind of the mindset of someone in a dark place. They don't really want to die, but that feels like the only option. So being able to reach and help somebody is so powerful. And I wanted to highlight, there's been so much dark news going on. A very positive thing that has happened. I don't know if you guys have heard, but Bon Jovi, I can't speak today. Bon Jovi was in the middle of recording a music video on a bridge in Tennessee, and he noticed a woman standing on the edge, as you can see in this image, and he and his producer walked over there just to speak with her, just to talk with her. And they ended up helping her over the edge. And then what's really beautiful, if you watch the video, is he gives her this huge hug and embrace of just, I'm here, and just anyone can be there, whether it's a smile, whether it's a hug. That could have been you saving that woman. And so always keeping that vigilance, always keeping that awareness of being in tune one with yourself so that you can be better in tune with others. It starts with managing your own emotion so you can be calm and present with someone who may also be struggling. All right, I'll pass it off to you, Lila. Oh, that's the video. Moving to the next slide. There we go.
Thank you so much, Erica. I loved that. And I think that you left it at such a great place, because now that we've talked about connection, I really want to talk about how we can connect with those who are needing help and those who have suicidal thoughts. So I chose this picture because I love oceans and I love sea life, but also an analogy I like to use is the ocean. So we can think of ourselves like ships that are sailing through an ocean, and we're dealing with waves, we're dealing with calm seas too. There can be brilliant sunrises and sunsets, but also there can be some pretty rough times on the ocean, right? In the open seas. And something I would like to point out is there are also lighthouses and other ships that are sailing by. And those lighthouses and other ships are our support system. So friends, family, acquaintances, like Erica shared about Bon Jovi helping with that one person who was suicidal, people who care about us and love us. And so it's the rest of this presentation from JCAC is almost going to be a how can we be a lighthouse and another boat that can help those who are struggling. And so we can kind of go to the next slide and continue. So understanding silent signals and using body language to offer help. So we've talked about the signs. Erica did a wonderful job at letting you know kind of that trifecta that can happen. And I want to talk about now about how we can encourage openness and connection through body language. So how can we use our body language to encourage others to open up and connect with us when they're needing help? I think the first bullet point is so important, but eye contact. So using direct eye contact can really build connection and trust, and it can show that we are really engaged in what the person is sharing. And it really just helps us build a stronger connection. And our posture is something also. So if we are facing them and we don't have our arms crossed, it shows we're open and we're really available to receive what they're needing to express, along with head nods and tilts and facial expressions. So it means that we are able to soak in what they're saying, and our tone of voice can also reflect that we're actively listening and we're present and we are there with them when they're sharing something that is so deeply rooted from hurt and pain. And when someone is struggling, knowing that you're present, engaged, you're being compassionate, and you really truly care, it's really, really important. So those are kind of the body language ways that we can help. And the next slide, we'll be talking about encouraging openness. So how to ask questions that invite sharing. You may feel like the word suicide might be a detriment, but actually research and study shows that asking you blatantly, have you been having thoughts about suicide? Are you suicidal? It actually is kind of like this emotional weight off the person's shoulder, and it makes them feel like they're being listened to, they're being acknowledged. Someone's actually acknowledging that they're in pain and they're needing help, and someone is really seeing them. And we aren't here to fix the struggle. So I actually think that second bullet point is so important because there's such a deep rooted pain there that we can't fix the struggle. But what we can do is be able to validate and empathetically reflect back what they're saying. And it can actually encourage the opposite of feeling isolated. It can encourage that connection piece that Erica left off on. If we reflect back, like, I'm hearing you're feeling alone, you're feeling isolated. So let's talk about you too, because you're the person who is assisting and helping the person who does need help. And your mental health is important too. So it's important to take some deep breaths, and your anxiety or dysregulation can actually lead to escalation. So it's kind of the mirror neurons piece that Erica did such a wonderful job at talking about. So if I'm able to reflect a calm demeanor and able to be able to be open and inviting and encouraging of your feelings, it can actually lead to the person in front of you feeling calm as well. So it's just a mindful demeanor can actually help the other person have a mindful demeanor too. And the last slide will be showing you care. So here are some tips for providing emotional support. So encouraging seeking professional help. So it's a phrase we all say in the mental health world. And to be honest, I would love to hear it said on a day-to-day basis, but it's okay to ask for help. And you can actually ask them, you can encourage them to share with you how you can support them in doing so. Can you make some calls to mental health providers? Can you try to schedule them that first appointment? Also, support plans. So just whether or not you're a mental health provider, you can also encourage them to talk about who can they rely on right now. What are some coping strategies they can use? And respecting their space, the third bullet point, I think is so important. So asking questions like, how can I best physically support you right now? How can I best emotionally support you right now? I think is very important. Can I help you with day-to-day tasks, getting groceries? Can I help you do some chores around the house that you haven't been able to do? But respecting their space if they say no, right? Respecting their space if they say not yet. But asking those questions, I think, is very important. And checking in. So remain in tune with them and check in and make sure that they feel like they are not alone, right? So that opposite of the isolation piece, the support piece, be the lighthouse and be the other ship that's sailing right beside them, right through the rough water. Something I did want to share is that staying informed can be learning new things. So just two little points are psychiatrists at Columbia University created the Columbia Protocol, and it's a tool for assessing suicide risk based on 6 key questions. So it talks about whether they've had ideation, plan, means, intent. And those actually with a detailed plan, 38% of people who have a detailed plan attempt suicide. So those are some pretty key, important statistics that you can, research more on as you go. And attending this webinar, also listening to this webinar, is a great aspect of staying informed. And then we can close out with our practice slide.
And
So
so I just want to highlight that we
Yes.
have a lot of resources available, YouTube videos about what is depression, what is anxiety, how to prevent, how to talk to someone with anxiety, as well as if you scan this QR code, there is a link tree with a list of just different resources in the community, support networks, how to find a counselor, psychiatrists, psychologists, different really great names in our community that can be there for you and help. Okay.
Excellent. Thank you, Liz, so much. Again, these are such wonderful tips. I love clear, concise takeaway tips, things that we can use to provide support to ourselves and really to others. You guys really gave us that. Thank you so much. For those that are watching, please do share this, with those that maybe if they're on a brief walk, they can listen to the webinar on their time in a drive on the way to the office. This is timeless education and information. And like we always say, education is prevention. So thank you, ladies, so much. Amazing. Thank you very much. Awesome. Well, moving on, I'm excited to introduce our next set of speakers, our last speakers for the webinar. I had the pleasure of meeting these students about a year ago. I was at Innovation Academy, and there was a great end of year presentation throughout the whole school. I mean, there was dozens of presentations all around the school about their research and their work and the projects that are working on robotics and these amazing things. And I came across this table for Neuro Insights. It's a club at Innovation Academy right here in downtown Alpharetta in Georgia. And these ladies gave an amazing presentation on what they're doing in their school and their passion about mental health. So I'm excited to introduce to you juniors at Innovation Academy, Joshna and Kashvi.
Great, thanks, Teresa. So we'll start. So, hello everyone, my name is Joshua Rajesh. I'm a junior at Innovation Academy and I'm the founder and president of the Neuro Insights Club.
Hi, my name is Kash Panada. I'm also a junior at Innovation Academy, and I'm the vice president.
So basically, what is Neuro Insights? It's a club that is dedicated to educating individuals about neurological, like mental health conditions, and this helps support individuals that are affected by these conditions or like are related to those affected by these conditions, because this also helps build a community of individuals who are committed to promoting neurological health awareness. And understanding neurological and mental health differences help promote more compassionate and supportive interactions with peers and other individuals. So how do we implement our goal?
Well, we plan to do activities like outreaches, so going to local elementary schools and middle schools and possibly high schools. And so doing this, we can create activities with the students, and they can be educated, and they can also learn about different neurological conditions and mental health conditions of their own peers, because in middle school, bullying is really prevalent, and those kind of ideas kind of foster at those ages. So if we were to go into like 5th grade or in middle school especially, then we can create those ideals that like, hey, these are just your friends, like they're just other students, and there's nothing funny about like whatever they're facing. And by teaching students about these kind of mental health and neurological conditions, we can help them become more aware of their own emotional states and mental processes. And this awareness is like the foundation of emotional intelligence, which allows students to recognize how their own thoughts and their feelings about their behaviors.
So one thing that we found was it's very important to make our activities and plans for our events very interactive with students so that they can actually learn through it. And this helps students because learning about how the brain influences emotions and behavior can give like students tool to better regulate their own emotions. And not only are we doing school outreaches, we're also planning on doing local outreaches with hospitals or businesses that are willing to take us in. And this will help us like raise money and awareness to fund like our future projects.
So how we got started with this club is that in our Essentials of Healthcare class, which is a class where we learn about different systems of the body, we're going through our neurological unit. We did a project on neurolooms led by Miss Leslie Holt. And what she did is she took different brain scans of different neurological conditions, and she put them into artwork so people could understand the conditions by looking at certain types of artwork. And she put this out to her community, and she has a studio so that the whole community can become educated just by looking at a piece of artwork.
And she has a place where she does this. However, we are dedicated to taking this education to other places. So we do events at other schools and business places so that we can take our education to there. And we are inspired by her, and we take a lot of her artwork and always like use it in all of our projects.
So her first idea was to take PET scans, which are on the pictures on the right. And so these PET scans allow her to create the images So the PET scans on the right, the first one is on depression, and the colors of the PET scans are kind of related to the heat scale. So a darker color means less brain activity. So in depression, the brain activity is very low in majority of the brain. And then in the far right picture, that's schizophrenia. So they have high activity in places that it's like in places that are prominent with like in the temporal lobes, so which control like hallucinations and delusions, which is why schizophrenia patients might have those type of symptoms. So she took these
And we also used PET scans like this so that we could give people a visual representation, because instead of just telling them about the facts, we've found that if we show them like the visual picture of how your brain looks if you're affected by these conditions, then it is more impactful on people. So overall, this adds to our mission statement, which is our ultimate goal is to employ a multi-phased approach to create a more compassionate and informed society where mental health is understood, accepted, and supported without any stigma or discrimination. Thank you for having us.
thank you for allowing us.
Thank you, ladies. I love everything about this club. You guys are doing an amazing job, and I can't wait to see where it goes. If there is any questions, you can place them in the chat, and we'll, of course, attend to those if we have to get back to you after as well and send them to the appropriate contact. But if not, I just wanted to thank you all for attending the Milton Mental Wellness 2024 webinar. This information will be accessible on the City of Milton's website, and we'll provide that to you. And we just hope that you found this helpful and encouraging, and please share with those that you know for supporting themselves and their loved ones. And as always, we hope our mission can spread throughout the community and across the nation for mental health and well-being, and making today better than it was yesterday. Thank you all.
Hey, Teresa, it looks like we have a raised hand from Terry, who might have a question. So Terry, if you'd want to unmute yourself, feel free to ask away.
Well, hi there. First of all, thanks for doing this tonight. I think it's so wonderful for the community to have access to these pieces of really crucial information. I happen to be a crisis counselor with Crisis Text Line, and I just wanted to mention that it is extremely intimidating to approach somebody who's having serious problems and serious doubts and thoughts about suicide. So I was really appreciative that you brought the talk about suicide right to the group in very stark terms. If you're ever in that situation, I definitely recommend encouraging that individual to reach out to 988 or Crisis Text Line, and it's crisistextline.org. 988, you can either talk to somebody in real time, or you can text or web chat. And Crisis Text Line is text-based only, so it's text or web chat. The reason I think it's so important to give both options is because first of all, a lot of people don't know about 988, and if they do, they know that it's kind of like the compatriot of 911, but for mental health. And people take it very, very seriously and think it's just suicide. And people always think, well, I'm not that serious. My problems aren't that big. So sometimes having a second option like Crisis Text Line is a little softer of a way for them to enter into some significant real-time counseling that can connect them with proper professionals like yourselves. So I just wanted to make that mention, because when people do encounter that, it raises your adrenaline level. It still does for me every time I take a conversation, and I've been doing this for years. So if you do have that situation, please encourage the person to reach out, and a simple way to remember it is 988 and or crisistextline.org. So thanks for giving me the chance to mention that.
Terry, thank you so much. Absolutely amazing. And thank you for all you do and being on call to take those calls. It's people like you that make this great work to help so many in our community. So thank you for all you do. Excellent. Well, we're going to make sure these resources, like Terry mentioned, are also going to be posted on the Mental Wellness website as well for your access and reference. So again, any other questions? We're here. If not, we wish you a great evening and thanks for watching.